You are watching Xirtus.
Everyone loved Sweden, who was like a Bernie bro, right? So like Bernie's whole both campaigns was like Sweden was like the ideal model for healthcare, and then it was like Sweden went from that being put on this pedestal to being completely demonized by all like the same people, like the same crowd. And I think that there was like this repressed, unacknowledged resentment about Bernie too, which Sweden kind of like was attached to psychologically, like maybe unconsciously. So it's just like, well, screw Sweden. They're not closing their schools. What are they crazy? And Sweden continued to do like their main guy who was equivalent to Fauci there, right, in that position. He said, he's like, the rest of the world is being weird. He's like, we're doing what we've always done. Like, you know, you're treating us like we're like this anomaly. He's like, no, you've all gone in another direction. We're just going to do it the way we've done it. And Sweden ended up faring better than almost anywhere in Europe. And but initially, because they had nursing homes that had people flying out, people would work elsewhere and then they'd fly it. So the people died, elderly people died in the nursing homes. But the year before, there was a giant trough in deaths from the elderly. So I found footage of people in Sweden before COVID hit saying, we're expecting a lot of elderly people to die here this year, because you can't have a trough like that and think it's just going to continue like that. You're going to have an unusual amount of deaths. So they saw that coming anyway. So the officials in Sweden, like, they knew that when the deaths first started happening. They're like, well, we were expecting that. So it wasn't just like this novel thing for them. They were like, well, you know, they're more vulnerable and this and that. So anyway, yeah. So everyone had flipped the script on Sweden, and so Midsommar was really like, it's this trippy thing because it's like all these Westerners going to Sweden and being horrified by how crazy these people are and what they're doing in this really fucked up community. And so I could translate that really easy to the way that people were relating to what Sweden was doing that was normal, as though it was Midsommar. What I was getting from people on Facebook in 2020 when I talked about Sweden was as though I was talking that Sweden was what was in Midsommar. And even though it was completely normal. So it's just like this extreme irony, just like loaded in there, you know? And so, yeah, Tool's album speaks to it too. You'd have to see it to believe to get it, but yeah.
On Andreas, were you implying in the comments that a Goofy movie was also about COVID and that Goofy represents the CDC or the government that's trying to control everything, and Max is the public, and it's about personal agency versus overly bearing strict controls and this road
Yeah, I was
trip?
going to add a
like,
racial
walking
dynamic
by.
there, obviously, because Goofy's black. But other than that, I think we're pretty much on the same page. The other thing is like Goofy. There's this whole like Snoop Dogg thing. Like Goofy is the missing link between man and dog, right? And there's the Goofy and Pluto. So there's the Unterhund and the Uberhund, right? Ubermensch, right? So like he's this freed or socially accepted dog, right? So the domesticated wild wolf, the whole thing, what they do with Goofy, and the fact that he's black is a bigger issue than people really let on, right? Like that's like what makes Goofy poor, single dad, you know, like the struggle that the kids are going through, everything in that movie. The fact that you have this Nixonian like principal who claims that Max is in a gang when he's not in a gang, right? Because he's trying to impress a girl by doing this Prince like song, you know, like, and there's just so many levels to it where you know, like his friend is so worried even just for helping him that his dad PJ is worried that Pete's gonna like annihilate his existence or squash him like a bug, or you know, because very strict parenting. Like this is not something that is super common with white Americans, parents that are disciplinarian. I mean, it exists, like military brats, but there's something very particular about the African American community that to be selectively profiled, mistargeted as a gang member, and to have no one to really like protect him in that circumstance. And his dad's working in a factory and has this lower class trade job, right? Goofy works in a factory. So I mean, I don't know, everything about the Goofy movie feels like it's preparing not necessarily for COVID, but anything like COVID, like 9/11, I would think even is a good example. Because, you know, 9/11 is something that was only possible, wouldn't have been possible when the Goofy movie happened.
When did the Goofy movie come out?
1995.
I like the question here is, how do you remember all that? Because this isn't mythology. This is your life. This isn't
Yeah,
the Goofy movie. This is your life.
Goofy movie is really like a particularly interesting movie because you have to also remember like when it came out. Like in 1995 you had Lion King, right? Like 1994, 1995, you had like really big movies, and this was I think Goofy movie was the first hyper low budget animated feature that
it was meant to be just direct to Disney Channel. That originally was not meant to be a theatrical release. It became a theatrical release once they saw how well it started testing.
Really? Yeah, I didn't even know that. So I know that they spent like, 10 times as much to make Lion King. And so they were trying to figure out, can we use what we're using to make the TV show to make a movie? But they still got like movie people to do it. And the animation studio in Australia and in France were involved with it. But it was like $18 million or something like that, which is just so much less than any other movie at the time. And they were kind of worried that if it succeeded, that would make it hard. And thank you very much, RJZ. That it would make it hard for them to make these big budget movies ever again, because people would say, well, then we don't need to do that. We could just do this digitally and everyone would be happy. But I mean, it's also the content is so different, because every other Disney movie is about fighting a villain, like with this heroic journey or something like that. And here is this father and son against nature, against the world, right? And there's something really internal and profound about a Goofy movie, I would say.
You open the door to Goofy movie, and I have to get your read on this, because I'm still trying to figure it out. That there's this one particular scene in which Goofy falls asleep in the car, or he's like outside and Max goes to the car, and as he's sitting in this car, the glove compartment magically opens up, the map comes out, and this little like pencil pops out of the glove compartment. And this is actually becomes supernatural, where the pencil itself moves and it points to LA on the map. And then after this is what gives Max this idea, and literally it's the left-hand path to go to LA, or it's the right-hand path to go to where Goofy wants to go, where like to have like this familial bonding. And Max chooses the left-hand path, but
the father knows like the whole time, because he's been warned about it. And so he's just I just want to see you actually do this. I'm God in this moment. Goofy is God, right? Because he's Anubis.
Right. Well, I guess the wonder is like, what energy, like what power caused the pencil to point directly at LA and cause the map to pop out of the glove compartment?
Sirius, the middle pillar, Sirius directed the pencil.
Sirius dog.
Which is the dog star. So there you have it.